Oh, yes, please. Yeah! Right, you win.
Was respectful to them.
Yeah! No. 2-0, I believe. Yes, thank you for that. Excellent. Well, everybody a warm welcome to the Royal Armouries, and of course this is the tournament gallery. My name is Andrew, this is my colleague Richard. Before we begin, has everybody had their government alarm alert? Excellent, so did I. So we're all being listened to. Now we can carry on with the interpretation. We've just shown you a fight using this weapon. What I'm going to do now is leave you with Richard to, well, describe the weapon and the techniques therein. Richard.
Yep, so this is a medieval sword. It's quite long, so you tend to use it with 2 hands. Hence, two-handed medieval long sword. Thank you so much, everyone. Back up to you, Andrew.
No, a bit more than that, please, Richard.
More? I suppose we can do a bit more. Yes, you typically tend to use it with 2 hands, but exactly the manner you may expect. Not hack and slash, stabby stabby. Once the end goes in the other person, it goes off. However, weapons tend to be a lot lighter than people realise, and I can still very comfortably use this with just 1 hand. Because it's a lot lighter, it also means it's a lot more versatile. Lots of weird and strange ways I can use this weapon you may not have thought of. For instance, one method involves putting my hand on the blade itself. Now, this seems like a very silly idea, and it is. Kids watching, please don't try this at home. The only reason why we're doing this is because we are trained professionals. One of us is anyway. However, there is method to the madness. The first is the idea of friction. If I grasp it very tightly and don't allow it to move in any kind of cutting or sawing motion, then theoretically it won't actually cut my hand. Theoretically. The second is the idea of sharpness. You wouldn't necessarily sharpen the entirety of the blade. If I were to be particularly cruel and shove this end through Andrew's face and he's dead there, he doesn't get any deader if I push it down to there. So, a lot of fight games actually talk about leaving the top or the bottom part unsharpened to give you this versatility, so you can use it in a variety of different ways. It's all very well talking about this for you came here to see in action. So, if I could borrow you for a moment, Andrew.
Oh, yes.
If you'd be so kind of me, please could you cut down my head, leading me into it.
With pleasure.
Thank you so much. So, by putting my hand on the blade, I can block Andrew's incoming attack. More importantly, I can knock his blade to one side and then go in for the kill. It's called half sword. Basically, turning the sword into more of a spear-like weapon, it gives me more accuracy, more leverage, and from here I can, pin Andrew's eyeball to the back of his skull. Or I can be particularly cruel, going through the mouth, knock out all his teeth, come at the back of his spine. Or I can get really creative, go around the sides, grab his lungs, spin it around and grab a kidney on the way out of the bloody
What? Just getting carried away now,
I am getting very carried away. However, that means if you can put 1 hand on the blade, you can also put 2. So, if you'd like to come down for a hand once again.
With pleasure.
Thank you very much. Same thing as before, stepping into the attack, blocking, knocking the blade to one side, this time grabbing it with both hands. Now I'm using more of a pickaxe, using the crossguards there to embed that into Andrew's skull. It's called a martial art, or literally translates as a murder strike, because as you can imagine, this is really going to ruin his death. Or if he's clever enough to block it, I can still use them to knock the blade down, go for the kill with this bit. It's called a pommel. It's normally there to counter the blade, on this occasion. Doubles very effectively as a tooth removal device. And I can do Andrew with pommeling or pummeling, is where the term comes from. So, there you have it, the two-handed medieval longsword. Thank you.
That's more like it.
There you go.
Right. How do we know that the sword was used in that way? How do we know Richard's not lying through his teeth? Well, we've looked at some manuscripts. Some illustrations from one in particular can be found around us here in the tournament gallery. These illustrations are taken from a manuscript known as Fettbook, simply translates as fight book, and it was written by Mr. Hans Taloffer. Now, not a great deal is known about Hans Taloffer himself. We know he was German, he was one of the leading fight masters of the period. We know he was employed by aristocracy and nobility to teach them how to use various weapons typical of the 15th century, including this, the two-handed sword. However, when we look at the illustrations in the manuscript itself, we are faced with a great deal of confusion because so much information is missing. So these illustrations are coupled with a small patch of text. We've had these translated. The illustrations themselves pretty much speak for themselves. However, that small patch of text is where the confusion comes. Allow me to illustrate one in particular. This one is my favourite. Now you can see in this illustration there's a man in red and a man in blue. The man in red has got behind the man in blue, has grabbed hold of his blade and seems to be kicking him in the small of the back. Now the small patch of text here translates as, having seized the blade, slip in. That's it. So you're not left with a great deal of information, as you can see. So, on this occasion, we'll have to work backwards. I can borrow you for a second, Richard. If you wouldn't mind, please, simply removing my head from that side.
With great pleasure, Andy.
So, stepping in and grabbing the blade, having defended myself, of course. First part done. Then it says, having seized the blade, slip in. So it doesn't want me to run away from Richard, but crowd him. And if I do that, but shove the hilt and across into his face, that turns him. As I step across, I get behind him. From here, if I kick him in the small of the back, his head goes reeling backwards, and from here, a simple throwing action, I will remove the head off the shoulder altogether. Now, perhaps that's what Hans Taloffer means by this particular illustration. To be quite honest, unless we get in a time machine, travel back and ask Hans, we'll probably never know. However, our body mechanics are exactly the same. So it's not rocket science, we just can't be 100% certain that we're correct. But what we'll do now is, we will break down a section of the combat we started with, explaining what it is we're trying to do to one another, and therefore explaining some of the techniques within the manuscript as well. To start with, as we approach one another, because we are highlighting a fight in a tournament, not a fight to the death, it's a form of entertainment which was refereed. An umpire would come in and break you apart at the end of each section and announce a winner. And that's what we are highlighting. Before we start fighting though, we adopt a starting position. Now they're known as stances. There are lots of them, some in the low line, some in the high line. Now I'm going to take one in the low line. This one here is known as the alba, which simply translates as fool's guard, because the point's facing the ground.
So to counter that, I'm going to take one in the high line, known as the kernigan, or crown stance, so called because the blade is pointing upwards, close to my head, much like a crown.
Now you're probably wondering, why have two people come together about to start a combat with the points of the swords facing anywhere but at one another? Well, the truth is we're willing the other to make the first attack. Now the problem occurs if we attack simultaneously. This happens. So he becomes a shish kebab, and I get split straight down the middle. So we will not be attacking simultaneously. One of us will start the attack.
And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Instead of launching myself onto Andrew's sword like a fool, I'm going to go around his sword and try and hack his leg off. Because without a leg, he ain't going to be much of a fighter.
So move first, then defend yourself. Keep the sword moving around in its momentum. Remove his leg.
Do exactly the same. Keep that circular motion going. But wind up and go for an overhead strike instead. Leave him in half.
Sloping parry here, encouraging my opponent's blade to the ground. Keep the circular footwork, remove his head.
Blocking straight upwards from here, I can use the crossbar to knock his blade out of the way, and then bring it straight down once again, attempting to cleave him in half.
Jumping back! Protecting the very taut six-pack there. No, okay. Half swording technique. Now shove it into his right eye. Hasn't worked, but he's on the run. Keep the attacks coming. Flip over, try the other side.
Blocking both attacks, but keeping our blades interlocked on the second one. From here, I can send my blade down his, try and hack his thumb off. With that thumb, can't hold on to the sword, fight over. However, that happens. It just pushes it down to the ground. It's called a glissade. However, it does put my blade in a perfect position to shove this through his taut six-pack.
That's right. Move away, beat it off, come down to the head.
Stepping to the side, sloping parry, keep that momentum going, and remove his head.
So from here, I could grab the blade and step in like I showed you in that illustration, or I could grab the blade, use the cross to beat myself, stab in his hand, and then take that particular point for myself.
Thank you for choosing the non-lethal option, I appreciate it.
No problem, so you get the idea. What we'll do now is show you the combat again. Actually, Richard, as it's 2-0 to me.
Yes, thank you for reminding me.
Okay. Shall we start the same, but somewhere in the middle of each section, each of us has to make a change of direction once.
So instead of going left, go right, and vice versa.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Only once.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm up for a challenge. You can do that.
So that's right.
And it's back. Is that what you're on about?
Yeah, that's very good. All good indeed.
Right, well that makes it 2-2, so I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.
No, you
Do
can't
hope you
possibly
enjoyed.
leave
What?
it there. You can't leave it there.
You mean it's a draw? Perfect place to leave it.
No, if it was football, that would mean it was a penalty shooting.
Well, it's because we're not playing football, we burst the balls, wouldn't we?
Right. Really? One more section then?
You guys want to see one more? Alright then, we're going to do one more. Let's make it interesting, shall we? You, the adoring general British public, get to decide the outcome of this final fight. Should the loser lose in a heroic, chivalric manner, befitting of two fine gentlemen such as myself and Andrew, or should the loser be utterly crushed and humiliated beyond compare? So, well, hang on, take a vote, do this properly. Who's for heroic and chivalric? Really? Thank you. I don't know where this is going. Who's supposed to get crushed and humiliated? What a surprise!
Right, well, what stance are you going with?
I am going to go for one in the low line.
I'm going to go for one in the high line. The highest of the high, in fact. Von Dutch from the roof.
You're expecting a low-flying pigeon. Alright, fine. I'll tell you what. That is... Give me that! Yeah! Right. I'm going to ask you a very important question now, Andrew. So be careful how you answer. Do you feel utterly crushed and humiliated beyond compare?
Yeah.
Yes! Good! I will take that as a win, and that's to me. Thank you so much.